Freddy, and welcome everybody, and thanks for watching in. I'd like to give the word directly to Niels. Niels, take it over.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our presentation here at the Spaces Summit. Our title is Professional Playing in the Cloud, and we'll be talking to you for the next half hour about how do we do development in the cloud while we want to learn and use stuff that is not actually available yet to us to prepare for the future and for future innovations. In this talk, Kevin and I will talk to you about how we do this. We'll be actually doing a live demo as well. So before this talk, we officially sacrificed a go to the demo gods as usual. We have to keep up to our standards, of course. Yeah, we'll be continuing. There's just one minor technical issue. Currently, I don't see any presentation, so I have no clue where we're currently at. So maybe somebody can fix that. But anyway, Kevin and I are going to do this talk. My name is Niels. I'm a Space Tech Lead for Logistics and Retailer 1. And Kevin, can you introduce yourself?
Yes, thanks, Niels. I'm Kevin van der Broek, and I'm the cloud liaison for the Safe Space. I'm also a young professional. That's why I've got this fancy hoodie. It's the Fireballs. It's one of the new rebranded names. And we'd like to take you through to this presentation.
Thank you. So our presentation consists of 3 parts. First, we'll be talking to you about the Cloud Playground, what it is and what we like about it. Then we'll be doing this demo, which we hope, of course, will work. And in the end, we'll talk to you about the rules of the game when we've actually used the Cloud Playground and what are the next steps. So let's first talk about what this Cloud Playground actually is. Kevin.
So the Cloud Playground. Well, if I think about a playground, I think about a mini holiday during my work hours, because it is just a Google Cloud project that you can do everything in yourself. Everybody has access to it, and it's made by Team One. And like I said, it's a mini holiday, right? If you want to test something out and you don't want to be obstructed by airplanes or anything, you can just use your own laptop, go to your own project, and start your Cloud Playground project. And why do you want to have this Cloud Playground project? Well, for example, to investigate resources unrestrictedly, or to allow people to experiment and learn without any barriers or security restrictions, because those, of course, have their own reasons to be in place. You also want to maybe host training sessions. You give everybody their own project with their own tools and resources to use, and you can instantly go ahead without asking other people for permissions, so you're also fully autonomous as a trainer. But there's so much more. For example, to be able to give a Spaces Summit talk, so thanks a lot for the playground. But what is it like to use this playground? Well, if I think about it, I think about a canyon, right? You've got walls and you've got a little bit of water in the middle. There are no bridges. There is nothing there. You are the god to create everything that you need. So there's no R2D2 that builds a bridge for you from the other side. So if you want to get to the other side, you'll have to choose some technologies. Do you want to use Spanner? Do you want to use PubSub? You just enable it as you go. But keep in mind, there is water in the canyon, and every week this water fills up and then everything's gone again. And there's no way to rebuild it with a click because everything is reset. So what we saw is that there is no R2D2 available. And then you get to the conclusion, if you want to do stuff reproducible every couple of weeks because you want to set up the same test environment, you'll get to some conclusion that you need Terraform or that you need Puppet. And then in the end, after a couple months, you'll have a Stormtrooper. It's just not R2D2, but it's a Stormtrooper. And those sometimes miss their shots, right? But also, what is actually quite useful if you're just starting out is that your UI is functional. If you want to get a new PubSub subscription or you want to test out the dead letter functionality, you can just press the buttons and have the Google UI guide you. And last but not least, you are totally free. There are no restrictions. Well, at least, of course, some guide rails that will help you to not go crazy in that cloud, but we'll get to those later. But you can do everything. That's why we also have this eagle. You are in control of this canyon and you can land wherever you want, but you can also take off and make a full clean stop. Some examples of this playground are these in the screenshot. I took this screenshot, I think, a week ago. I have no clue what some of them are. You can see our test run there, the Spaces Summit famous places. But you also see data science projects, a burp test, or the cloud CDN. These are all done by our colleagues that are just testing their own stuff. And I also see a VPC test. That might be Freddy. Other examples are cloud tracing, data science projects, or cloud trainings, like we touched upon earlier. So cloud tracing, why would you want to do this in the playground? Well, you can instantly test out the UI that Google offers you. If we want to use the cloud tracing in our apps, it might also be useful to look at the UI and to just play around with it a little bit to get a sense of the integration. If we are developing our apps and we don't want to do it in our full-blown service with 100,000 lines of code, we might just create a small script or a small app to test this integration. Is the Google SDK actually good? Or should we use a different library? This speeds up so much because you can just take 2 days off your work week to take the small holiday in the playground and test around. And you can also see the usability of these tools. A good example would be that if you would integrate pops-up.letter topics, that there's no requeue button like our Boxman interface has. You wouldn't know these if you would wait on R2D2 or platform to enable these for you, because that takes some time, of course. And then you're still stuck in that flow. And data science. I've talked to a data science engineer, and he told me that they use this to experiment a lot. They try to figure out new Google APIs because they can just click through the catalog. And then a good example is the AI platform. We have it at bol.com, although a little bit less enabled because we have blocked off certain features. But now you get into the confusion. Am I doing something that doesn't work because of my faults? Or am I doing something that doesn't work because it's blocked? If you're in the playground, there are no limitations, and you can figure out what went wrong and how it went wrong. It's also good to understand the tools that you're using, because if you're just using R2D2, there might be some confusion between how stuff is enabled in the cloud or how we enable it for ourselves. And if you're following Google tutorials, that doesn't really help, because you're now in this fancy Google tutorial that has buttons and clickouts and videos that explain everything with this Google Cloud Platform. If you then need to make the translation yourself, oh, I need this feature, which means I need to do an R2D2 run, which might take a couple minutes, you're out of your flow. And on a holiday, you don't want to get out of your flow. So you just follow the links that Google provides, and you can easily follow through on your tutorial. And it's also very, very useful if you want a new feature that you understand and are able to explain what Google offers and why it is that good. So if you go to a platform team and you want to ask them, hey, could you enable the Cloud Vision API? If you then already have a set of projects that work with it, show how it works, show which roles and permissions are required, then it helps them tremendously, because otherwise they will have to figure it out themselves as well. So a thing that Timo said that I was quite happy with was that he recommends everybody to try out the cloud tech in the playground. And I completely agree, and I think Niels does too. So another example, the cloud trainings. This is something that I've enjoyed doing because, like I said, you're just able to follow the Google trainings without going to a different tool or without going out of your comfort zone. There are no restrictions. You can do quick scaffolding, right? You can just press the button and it'll be there in a couple minutes. You have a quick feedback loop. If something fails, it is always on Google's side or on the user between the keyboard and the chair. And you get a better R2D2 understanding. Why did R2D2 do a specific naming? Or why are some things eventually consistent in R2D2? Using it with the cloud trainings helps a lot. So Niels, let's go to some demo time.
Yeah, definitely. So what we want to show you in this demo is a couple of the Google tools that are not readily available through R2D2. Actually, we use the 3, but currently Vision API has become available in R2D2, so actually it's only 2 at the moment. But what we'll be doing in this demo is we'll be creating a small app that is actually hosted in a GitHub repo, so it's a public repo that we created, and we'll be deploying it in the Cloud Playground. Using only Google tooling, will not go outside of any specific cases. So I'll share my screen and let's see if we can then enjoy this demo. Hopefully you guys can now see my screen. And if everything is okay, you're seeing my browser. And in this browser, I'm showing a new Google project. It's called Spaces Summit Famous Locations. It's completely empty. As you can see, also the costs are 0. And if I go, for example, into the buckets, then you can see there's absolutely nothing in there. It's completely empty. So we haven't created anything in this entire project. Also, for example, Firestore, which we'll be using in this demo. It is not even set up yet, so I'll just select the native mode here. And I want my data to be in Europe, but I'll go for a bit cheaper version than to do the completely backup situation. So let's do Frankfurt to keep our costs down a bit. And we'll just create our database. This takes a few minutes, and we'll let this run in the background. Anyway, this project is completely empty, but what we want to do is we want to deploy an app really quickly. And this app is going to help us to determine, based on images, what famous places are. We use the Vision API from Google directly to do this. We just built a small Go app to do this. So what we'll be doing is we'll be deploying a Cloud Run application through a Cloud Build, which will be building our Go app from GitHub, and then deploy it as a Docker container push the Docker container to the Google repository, and then run it as a Cloud Run service. So let's just use the entire interface to do this. It will just take a few clicks. So let's create a service. We'll call it Famous Places. There we go. We'll put it in Europe again, because let's not waste any money here. Let's do the Netherlands. It's not the cheapest, but let's do it. Next. And we'll do this from a continuous deploy. So we'll do this with Cloud Build. We'll get a pop-up, and we'll use GitHub, which is already enabled through my profile. I'll also use my repository here. So I'll use the Spaces Summit Famous Places. I understand. Yes, that's very nice. And we don't want to mirror it, so that's good. Then it will continue. It has not a main branch, but it has a master branch. So let's do that. And it is a Go application. So let's use the default to do this. Save. This will be nice. So we're fine here. We can do some additional parameters if we want to, but that should not be necessary. So go next. And for now, let's leave the authentication on require authentication. I'll fix this later, but for now, let's just have it built. As you can see, it's now creating the app, and it'll soon switch to a different screen where we have this Famous Places placeholder now getting up. And in the meantime, it's also going to do a Cloud Build, which I can show you in a different tab. Sorry, like this, because you can only see one tab. So here we see there's actually a build running, and we can open that up. And it's going to do 3 steps. It's going to do a build pack for this Go application, which is basically looking at our code, figuring out it's a Go application, and then creating it on the fly into a Docker container. Then it will push it into the repository, and finally it will deploy it as a Go run service. In the end, we have in our repository a build YAML, and I will switch to GitHub now. That one. So in GitHub, we actually do have a Cloud Build YAML, which has 3 build steps, which are actually better defined or more defined than our current Cloud Build is. So we'll switch that over in a second. But let's first have this build continue. As you can see, it's running now through the steps, and it's currently at the build pack step, but it's now continuing as well to the push of the Docker container. Let's look at the triggers here. This is actually the trigger that was created by a Cloud Run. And here we actually want to switch it over to use the Cloud YAML, because that's the way we set this up. So it's actually in the repository, and it's called Cloud Build YAML, just to make sure that we're actually doing the right things here. There we go. In the meantime, this should go back to a Cloud Run application. And our Cloud Run application should be running. Here we have our Famous Places application. It is actually running. You have all the nice vision screens and everything. You have the revisions tab that says, hey, we had a placeholder before, but now we're actually deploying something. That's there. And additionally, it is said it's deployed by Cloud Build. It has a link to the trigger, and it has the setup that is here. That's really nice, all in all. Now, the fun part is that we can now actually use this to do some real work. So let me copy this this URL, go into a different tab again. And first thing it will say, of course, that it is available at this moment, and that's probably because it was exposed. So that's weird. Oh, I have the wrong URL. My bad. That one. Hey. It should not be available. Why is it? Anyway, I have an application here that's running. And additionally, we also have a nice list page that is currently empty, which shows that there's no entries yet. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to allow everybody to use this. There we go. And this would mean that if Kevin can copy this URL and put it somewhere in the chat, then you guys can all try this application, actually. What I'm going to do in the meantime is I'm going to use my application and choose a bunch of images that are prepared beforehand, which is, of course, part of a good demo. And then I'm going to drag these in here. These are 22 images that are going to be analyzed by the Vision API on what they are. And as you can see, we have a bunch of images here. So, for example, the Amsterdam railway station, the Louvre in Paris, the Statue of Liberty, the Yellowstone National Park, etc., etc. And these are all identified by the Google Vision API. And also in our list page, these have shown up now. And I see already some other people have uploaded their images, the unknown, for example. But you can all try this. And if you open the list page, you should see images from other people appear. Also, goats really don't work out. They don't know. Google Vision API doesn't know what it is. The ISS, for example, is also an unknown. It apparently must be places on Earth. And Fish Island in Uyuni, Bolivia, is also apparently an unknown image. But well, we'll get there. Pineapples are also not good. So in general, what have we built so far? We have built a Go app from a GitHub repository. It's automatically deployed through a Cloud Run. It uses the Vision API to extract images from, the information from an image about a famous place that's possibly in there. And it then shows this in a nice UI. But this is, of course, not what you really are interested in, because we can do even more. And Kevin, you can take it over now.
Yes, thanks a lot, Niels. I think we only sacrificed one goat because we saw the picture, and I might be the one that was already in the background enabling the API to be exposed to everybody. So that is the demo effect. So it's very awesome, Niels, what you've now shown. But I see a lot of images being uploaded, and I wonder how long does it take to get these images there? So what can we now do? Well, of course, we can do everything. We're on holiday. But let's enable the tracing API. How does it look like, and what do I now do? Well, I can go into the menu bar and I can look for the tracing API. I've already got it pinned there. I can also simply search for trace and I see, oh, hey, there is a tracing API. So I want to enable it, but I already see that it is enabled and I also already see data. So how does this happen? Well, we're using managed Google products, and managed Google products means that there's a lot of auto integrations within the Google platform. So Cloud Run also has tracing implementation for free out of the box. So let's see what this looks like. We can have a zoom in, and you see that we've got one request, which was quite long. It was a 5-second request. And this is explainable because Cloud Run is a scale to 0 app, and this was the first boot up. But after that, it was quite fast. And you see that somebody is refreshing every second or two. Might be because we do an auto refresh on that page there. So there is not a lot of information that I see. I just see that there's a call to the page and that it takes a couple seconds, milliseconds. So let's do some live coding. But before we do this live coding, I will make it a private service, because you know what happens when you expose something to the world. The internet will happen. So now nobody should be able to access the app anymore. We can validate it. It is still there. So this is the different demo effect going. This is super interesting.
Authentication is something broke down there. Apparently Google is no longer checking this.
Yeah, this is most likely eventually consistent configuration.
Yeah, there's probably something going on there. Well, we'll see.
Require authentication. Save. Now it's trying to do another traffic ingress.
Yeah, now it's at least blocked.
There you go.
So now I got a forward.
So now it's blocked. Yeah. So now we don't have all these goat images going up there. So let's look at the code. We see that we've got a project right here, and I won't go into the details of the code. I will simply be copying a couple snippets so you see the flow of how we add code to this project. So we already did this. So we will copy this exporter piece, which will register our system to export traces. We chose to use the OpenTelemetry library. It's an open standard that combines metrics and traces and has an implementation to export to Google. I also have to copy these imports. And I will be adding a tracing handler to the HTTP requests, which will just act as a middleware. So you see here that we handle all the handlers. And we will just do this for the file handler there. There we go. Yes. That's there. Command tidy. So this is now all good. Now let's go into the endpoints ourselves and let's add some traces. We want to have an instance of this tracer object so that we can send the traces to. And we want to initialize this tracer there. So there we have the tracer. And now we can use, because this is just Go code, can use this reference everywhere in our methods. And how we specify trace is simply by calling the tracer.start. And this will also take in our context and push it forward. So we're now going to tell Google, hey, we have a trace. It's the http:/list. And we want to now collect all the time it spent and all the data that we add to it in this function call. We also want to have a trace on the Firestore list. So we're querying the database and we want to know how long does this take. Using this, we can use tracing propagation, which will add it as a child trace from this parent that we initially started with. We can now also add this tracing to the by creation date, because of course on the list page, what we do to make sure that we only get the latest is we add a filter, give all the new results past this date. So there we go. So if I want to now add this code, you see it's just a Git repository. I can git add this, and I can say add a tracing support, and I can push it. So we now see that we've pushed our code to Git. So let's see how it looks like on the GitHub repository itself. So we see that we've pushed our commit, and we already see a cool integration from GitHub side with the Cloud Build app integration from Google Cloud Platform, that there's some build running. We can use this icon to go to the build in Google, but we can also, of course, use the UI or look at what Cloud Run is doing. So now I will open the Cloud Build page to see where the trigger, what the trigger is doing. And you see that it's doing a build. You can follow the logs. And this is also a thing that we used within Bol. Previously, before we generally used Jib at Excel applications, we pushed our Docker files to the Cloud Build API. And while it is doing its thing, I will allow all traffic and allow unauthenticated invocations. And when this is done, you will see tracing show up in the tracing API with more details. But I am looking at the time, and I see we're also at the end, so I'm going to switch back to the presentation. There we go. So what did we see? Well, we saw a small Go app, a GitHub repository, and a Cloud Build integration. We've also seen that we've integrated with a lot of resources at Google that we were able to implement ourselves just using Google APIs and the UI. But what are the rules of the game? Niels, could you go us through it?
Yes, I will. Thank you. So let's first start with the most important part. This is not production ready. So whatever we showed you, it's not production ready. This is demo. This is a testing environment. So we can use a lot of tooling that is actually out there, but yeah, we need to take additional steps to get this into production at bol.com if we actually want to go there and our tests are successful. So the first step, I think, in any case, is to always involve your cloud liaison in this step. And we put them on the slide here, so you can talk to all these guys and a special sponsor, Dennis van Balen, as well, to find out, what are the next steps? How can we get this to pro at bol.com? But we actually made it a bit more specific. So the first steps we need to do is we need to do some basic checks, right? So does our feature actually fit into the current bol.com cloud setup? And that's about choices we made in the past and about security. But also, is it the commercially viable solution? So does this perform well? What are the costs? How does it work? What is the actual predicted spend per use case or per month, etc. We need to be a little bit more detailed in how we can bring this to a solution. And of course, the most important question: does this actually solve the problem that we're looking at? And if we're sort of through these steps, then the first step that we'll have to do before we actually get this through the platform to the platform is to actually build a use case. What does it bring us? Which teams are involved? What costs? Is there an alternative, etc., etc.? We need to answer all these questions. Then, as always, any tool that we select must be evaluated through the cloud funnel. So it must be compared to all other possible innovations that we're doing on the cloud and on our cloud platform to make sure that we're actually making the right choices as a company and not just for individual teams. And this is where the cloud funnel comes in. And this is really important to make sure that we're actually taking the biggest benefits for everybody. And finally, if it then gets through the cloud funnel, we need this implementation by the platform. It needs to get documented, to get proper support. Basically, all the things that are currently in the cloud definition of done need to go there. So we want to leave you with the statement that it's a long road, but our experience is that it can go very fast if it's a worthwhile feature, and also, that it is a possible road. It's not like we're saying this is impossible, but yeah. We need to take these steps carefully. Kevin.
So yeah, you've seen our app, but this costs money. And you're on holiday, you only have a set budget when you go on holiday, so spend it wisely. Also at this playground. You have seen these headlines. You leave your app running over the weekend, Cloud Spanner, for example, and you rack up a bill of $70 to $1,000. This is not what you want to have. So what have we done in the playground to make sure you've got a good experience? It's a short-lived project, like we said. It's only available for a week or longer if you add some annotations. The billing is capped at 500. If you reach that mark, your application will stop. You have a free tier, and you will also count to the free tier. So our Cloud Run app wasn't so expensive after all. And keep yourself asking questions. Would you spend it yourself? To see how expensive your app is running, you can look into the billing dashboard, which of course is available for you. And it's also available for your normal project within bol.com for your team. So have a look there. It is just in the Google UI and search for it. Our app was 10 cents when we looked at it yesterday. So what's next? Go and ask permissions at KA to reach the playground and take the day off tomorrow and start using the playground. Start to create kick-ass technologies and use everything that you've got. So let's start shaping the future of retail in the cloud with Uri's money. Thank you.
Well, Kevin and Niels, thank you very much for that talk. And well, you did something wonderful. I had 2 questions arrived in the Mentimeter, and you both answered them more or less in the end. I mean, the question was a bit like, okay, how does this process work? I mean, if I try something, a new Google feature, is it guaranteed supported? And what's the process for this? And even if I'm the only user, but I think the end of your talk just answered that question.
Awesome. Nice.
So well done. Thank you very much. And nice. I hope we will start using the playground.
Thank you.
Yeah. So